Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. And today I'm very excited because we have Nicola Salter on. She is part of our podcast community. She has her own podcast on our show. She also has her podcast that you can find on her website, and she's just amazing. She works in leadership and high performance coaching. And today she wants to talk about living life on your own terms. And she uses the term being in our raw. And she's going to tell you exactly what that means and how you could apply that to your life to make a better life for yourself and to be able to elevate to the levels in life that you want to achieve. So it is a pleasure, Nicola, to have you on this show. I love when you come on this show. I always want to keep you on forever. So tell everybody a little about yourself and what you do before we begin.
Sure. Thank you, Stacey. And I always just love being on your show. You really are the best interviewer ever. Um, Thank you. So I am a personal and business transformation coach. I work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, educators, artists, from women from all walks of life. I help women redefine themselves. And I love to focus in on empowering their mindset so that they can take those next steps that they're looking for.
I love it. I love it. Now, you talk about living life on your own terms, and today you used the concept to me. You said being in our raw. So,
Mm,
what does that exactly mean for people who are going to listen and they say, "What does living in your raw mean?"
right.
What does that mean to you?
So for women, living in our rawness is really being in our vulnerability, having the courage to be vulnerable, realizing our weaknesses are okay to be weaknesses, as well as, identifying our strengths, of course. It's being in our raw is knowing when to ask for help
Yeah.
and, to stop being that nice doormat that we can sometimes be.
Yes.
Um, I also I feel that being in your raw also means knowing when you're hurting inside and you've really put up with a lot and you've done as much as you can. Women are great caretakers,
Yeah.
but we suddenly sometimes overinvest in others. And just to know when you're hurting or feeling sad and you can no longer put up with circumstances that no longer serve you. So your rawness is that vulnerability. It's an emotional exposure. It's showing up with who you really are
Yeah.
and taking risks and just making changes that you want to see for yourself in your life and not minding others. This is your raw. It's like your essence. Who are you really?
I can relate to that. I feel like for years, especially when I've been with my husband since our early 20s. I met him when I was 19, and I was always trying to please, whether it was trying to please him, whether it was trying to please his family, whether it was trying to do things for others. I was always doing for everybody else. And in the meantime, I kind of got lost because I was like, who is Stacy? What
Yeah,
does Stacy want? What's under all those layers, of that person.
yeah,
And, I got to a point where I felt like when I got into my early 50s, late 40s, I felt like all of a sudden I realized that, I started to feel like my feet were fitting into my shoes finally. And I started to realize who Stacy was.
yeah.
And that's when I started to start speaking up for myself. And I started to let people know what my boundaries were. I let myself go. I was, more, I became that woman who was defining myself, who actually stripped all those titles that I
Yeah.
had for so many years, and I was becoming the woman I wanted to become, and it felt great. But I'll tell you, a lot of people around me did not like it, and they liked the old Stacy who was the people pleaser. They did not like the Stacy who was now more independent, felt more stronger, knew what she wanted in life, and was setting her boundaries and her goals. And I feel that is very powerful, but yet very common in our society.
It really is. It's a lovely way of sharing with the listeners, a form of rawness. And we don't even know sometimes as women that we're not being in our raw for a certain amount of years and we are over investing somewhat in everyone else. What you did, you dared to be who you really are. You let the mask fall away. You said, "That's it. I'm tired of wearing this mask for everybody else. I'm going to take it off." And I dare, and it feels good to,
Yeah.
it's empowering to let that mask fall away, to feel that rawness. And I think showing up messy without fear of being judged or rejected is a great way of being in your rawness. So showing up messy means like, you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and once we all start really connecting with that part of ourselves and realizing that, we really cannot be in this level of perfection every single day, every hour of the day, it's going to take a lot of pressure off us
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of overwhelm. And, that need to be perfect is usually a fear of failure anyway, which society puts on us. And so showing up messy, I want everyone to think about showing up messy. I want that, what that means for them.
I like that. I think because of society, we have this feeling that we have to compare with the Joneses. We see we see what social media is, and what they put in our heads, which isn't even realistic. It's all fake, and then you see what they're doing in on television, and you see all these other things, and you feel like there is a certain way that you're supposed to present yourself, and when you can't be in your raw, that to me, that's just being insecure and not yet at that level of strength where you could feel secure in who you are and not care what others think. Because, if you look at a lot of successful people, there's a lot of successful people, you wouldn't even know that they were successful because they're in a pair of jeans, they're in a t-shirt, they're just being who they are. And you would never know if they were sitting next to you that they are so successful, that they are doing what makes them happy, and they are achieving their goals because they've gotten to that point where, you know what, this is who I am. It's working for me. I like it. I am happy with myself, and I don't care what you think. And the problem in our society, we have so much stigmatism and labelism that everybody cares about whatever everybody thinks.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a facade that we've learned how to present at work, like you said, in relationships. Sometimes we need to survive by keeping people at arm's length. We stay aloof,
Yeah.
so that we avoid connection. And sometimes we avoid connection because we don't want to be judged. Oh my gosh, it's just such a multitudes of layers of stuff that we've buried ourselves under. And um, this mask over our rawness buries our true self. And as I said, we might not even be aware of it for a number of years until we start feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and we start discombobulating. And then we realize, oh, something's going on here. Right. And we start diving a bit deeper on the way that we're living and presenting ourselves. So, you know, in your rawness, it's really embracing your true self and who you really are. And if you don't feel you want to conform and fit into everybody else's ideals, don't.
Yeah.
Um, how do you want to express your passion for life? How do you want to move? How do you want to dress?
Yeah.
What colors do you want to choose to surround you and your environment? And how do you stand up for yourself? You know, how do you take care of you?
Yeah.
There's so many different things to allow you to access your connection to your rawness, where you want to put your attention and with whom,
Yeah.
you know, how you choose to live, breathe, and what do you want to include in your life. These are all the colors of you. These are your what make up your rawness.
Yes.
Um, and I get sad because I see women putting that to one side so that, as you said, so they can conform with society's ideals. And then we forget who we are. When we're beautiful, we've got so much wisdom, we've got
Yes.
so much tenacity, we're incredible, we're so intuitive. We don't need to hide. We
Yeah.
don't need to hide. We need to show more of our raw.
I once said to somebody, and I knew they weren't showing their raw, and I said, what do you want from life? I said, if you take away the title mom, and you take away this, and you
Yeah.
take away that, and I stripped her from all her titles. I said, who are you? She couldn't answer me for a second. She just looked at me, very dumbfounded, and she didn't know who she was. She didn't know who her true self was because all these years she played the role of all these titles that she thought she needed to conform to, and she didn't know who her raw was. She didn't
Mm-mm.
know who her true self was. So for those people who don't know who their true self is, what do you suggest to them? How do they start to actually find who their true self is? And then how do they get the courage to actually become that true self?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It can be quite a process, and it's like, where do you start?
Yeah.
It's really, it's looking at your life and looking at what you really love doing, but you keep putting to one side so
Hmm.
that you can do everything else. That's a good place to start. I have a client, Renee. She owns two advertising agencies. She's a CEO and she's owner. But she also has a ranch, and she has 23 animals on this ranch.
Yeah.
And her love is the ranch, but yet she's, the business was first for many, many, many years. She got tired, she got burnt out. And it was that burnout and overwhelm that really helped direct her back to the ranch and animals becoming her priority,
Yeah.
um, and creating more of a balance between work and what she really loves. So look at what you really love and like look at just like what you like wearing. What do you really like wearing? What colors do you love? What jewelry do you really want? And yet you feel you can't wear it to work for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, Try and wear more of it when you're not at work, or try and introduce some of it into work so that your personality starts showing up.
Yeah.
Um, Meeting yourself where you are now, today, in this moment, really just means connecting with who you know yourself to be. All
Yeah.
right. So you might be feeling tired or weak, and you might be feeling maybe happy.
Hmm.
Um, those elements are not your raw. Your rawness, who you really are, is who you are really. So you might be, for example, you might know deep down that you are actually quite creative, that you are a truth seeker.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe you're an inspirationalist. You spend time inspiring women around you and your friends. Maybe you're a connector. You're wonderful at connecting people.
Right.
Uh, could be a good speaker, mother, you know, builder, lover, peacemaker. There's so many different things that deep down
Yeah.
that you are. Well, that's part of your raw, and that's what wants to come out
Yeah.
more. And it doesn't mean that you have to give everything up in order to do this. It means celebrating and embracing those parts of you that you keep putting away.
I like that. And I think that's so important. And I think, sometimes we have to also make sure that we feel, that we are vulnerable enough to let ourselves go, but yet we have to stay strong and not let what others say affect us. Because I know when I became who I wanted to be and I started to dress more fun and I started to really feel good about myself, and I would wear a lot of sparkly stuff because I thought it was youthful, fun, and people got a kick out of it. I'd have people like grab me and they're like, "Where'd you get that?" And I would have so much fun, and interact with people. And then I would have those people like, would make fun of the glitz and the the heart sneakers and whatnot, and I'm like, well, this is what I like. This is what makes me happy.
Yeah.
This is who I am, and you know what? If people love you, if people like you, and people want to be with you, they're going to accept you for who you are no matter what. Whether you're messy, whether you're glitzy, whether your hair it looks like a big pompadour, like
Yeah.
they're not going to care. They're going to love you for you.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it's wonderful. It's your personality.
Yeah.
It's that fun side, that edge. And maybe rawness isn't always fun. Rawness can also be, being okay when you're not feeling okay. That's
Yeah.
rawness too in vulnerability.
Yeah.
Um, Vulnerability is that courage to step out and say it's a strength. It's actually a strength. As you find more of your vulnerability and your rawness coming out, it empowers you as you saw yourself. You're like, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Uh, and you find your tribe more easily when you're like that.
Yeah.
Um, you don't want to fit in. All right.
Right.
Everyone's trying to fit in. What we need to seek is belonging,
Yes.
belonging in a tribe because of a friendship group, because you can be yourself.
Yes.
You're completely true, 100% you. You can sit back, you can talk, you're not going to be judged. You can be truly who you are with people who are very like spirited with you. And in order to find those people, is taking that first step of being in your rawness.
Yes.
And I feel that women are getting closer to that than they have done
Yes,
before,
I
finding
agree.
the freedom to do it, and which is wonderful. Um, Yet we still tend to forget that society kind of imprints what it wants on us through
Yeah.
social media, and we do tend to compare ourselves, still when it's in our faces every day, and they're like, well, I haven't got that, and she's doing this and she's doing that, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing that well, and so you can feel less than. When you have your rawness, you don't feel so less than because
Yes.
you're unique. There's a lady who lives near me, and she's wonderful. She's about 66, I reckon, and she's got two dogs. She walks around with her very long gray hair. She's got colors in her hair, ribbons in her hair,
I love it.
long flowing clothes. She's really well educated and super intelligent. And that's how she expresses herself. And she just really doesn't care. She's like, I know who I am.
That
This
is
is.
amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. When I see people like that and I see people like in their 60s and they have like maybe a little purple or pink in the
Yeah,
front of their hair and they're wearing fun clothes and they're being who they are. They're
yeah,
not caring what society thinks. And I love that. And and it is true that today's society is starting to break free and they're starting to realize they have an identity and it's okay to be who they want to be and they're changing the world. And I think the old timers, like our generation and the older generation, and after us, is having a very hard time accepting it and they don't get it. But what I've noticed through just analyzing people is that we grow up in an environment, and our environment is our family. And
mm,
they tell us from the moment we come out of the womb, we are taken care of. And then as we get older, 2 years old, we're told what we can do, what we can't do, what's right, what's wrong. You go to school, you do this, blah, 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 blah. We're always told what to do. So in our head, we have a way of thinking according to what the environment we came from told us what's right, told us what our raw is. And then we don't realize after, as we're growing up, we realize that, hey, you know what? This is my raw. This is my raw because this is what my family told me. This is what my church told me. This is what my temple told me. And they go on,
yeah,
that's what they keep in their head. And then all of a sudden they get to a point in life and they're not happy. And
that's right.
they're just like they're living life, but they're missing something. And they know deep down inside they're missing something.
Mm.
And it's like you said, you have to really look at what you're good at, who your true self is. But so many people have a hard time of breaking out of that environment that they were taught in.
Yeah,
They
it's
feel like
it's
they're disappointing their family or the people who taught them.
Yeah, and it's a really good point you bring up here because that is the mindset belief patterns that have been created through exposure to repeated patterns of behavior and what we're told. And the brain responds really well to learning that way. So, sustained over time, the same messages that you're getting, you'll come to believe that.
Yeah.
Um, the good news is that you can change that. You can change that belief pattern
Yes.
that's been set up. Once you realize you're not happy, or you're thinking there must be more than this,
Yeah.
you start to realize what you've been told might not be a fit for you, and
Right.
so you yourself can start shifting your thinking processes. Staying curious and knowing that you have choices every step of the way. You have a choice to be raw if you want.
Yeah,
They do.
you do.
It's your belief pattern that's getting in the way because you believe what you've been told. And you can change that by introducing certain elements into your life where you can go and be messy for a while and enjoy being messy.
Exactly.
And you might even think, oh my goodness, what would my mother think if she saw me now? It's like, okay, just go be messy. Just have an
Uh-huh.
experience of what messy's like.
Yeah.
Um, and that begins to help shift your belief patterns too. So you can then fall more into um, your rawness, a sustained effort you're taking in terms of making a change every day with your own belief patterns. And it's possible to do, but you're absolutely right, I should say, and you're absolutely right, not but, and you're absolutely right that it's what we're told and we become, believers of that. And it's your brain, it's the neural patterns in your brain that have been created through hearing this stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
So just as you learn to ride a bike, just as you learn to drive a car, you can learn to change your behavioral patterns too.
Is there a way or some exercises that you find that are very useful for people if they want to change their behavior patterns, how they could start to do it? Like, is there exercises they can do at home or, things that they can help themselves?
Yeah, there's a technique called the emotional freedom technique, and it's a form of tapping where you're tapping different points. You need to Google it to find out how to do it, but it literally means tapping different points on the head,
Right.
which send impulses to the center of the brain where your emotions are held, and um, where you can start changing the patterns in the brain. The actual combination of tapping and making a statement at the same time helps the brain to start rewiring itself into a new belief.
Yeah.
And you just need to identify what the belief is that's holding you back. So, for example, it might be that you feel, let's just say you feel overwhelmed. It would be, even though I feel overwhelmed, I'm okay. I choose to release this pain. It no longer affects me. I love and accept myself. I am confident. I am valuable.
Hmm.
That might be a positive statement you make. And
Yes.
you tap this on every single point. And as you do, you're calming the nervous system and you're giving the brain a new way of thinking. And you need to do it over and over again.
Hmm.
Uh, and you measure it, the intensity of it. You might be a level 7 of feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
By the time you finish the tapping, you might have dropped to a level 5.
Hmm.
So, that the emotional freedom technique is one way of doing it. Meditation,
Hmm.
uh, visualization, whether you're following it on an app, um, listening to music, any way you choose, gives you the chance just to stop and be and reconnect with your inner self, even if it's for 5 minutes.
Right.
Like in all of what you're doing during the day and all the craziness that's going on, um, you can lose sight of yourself and what you want. And you can get to the end of the day and feel like you didn't really accomplish what you wanted because you've been serving everybody else. So, taking time to meditate is really important. It gives you a chance for inner reflection and just calming your mind for 5, 10 minutes. So, it's not busy on all those to do lists and where you need to be. That
Exactly.
helps you connect to more of that rawness, that vulnerability, that peacefulness.
Yes. I was working with a coach with Tappan and I got I was given by two authors two really good books. I can't remember the title off the top of my head right now, but it was on Tappan and Tappan is very effective. And I said, I highly suggest too that if someone is not familiar with it, get a book on Tappan or, look up some really good, either webinars or videos that are known by, someone reputable and start getting the idea of what's happened is because it is very effective.
It's very effective. I actually coach people in tapping.
Oh,
So
excellent.
people
Yeah. So they
could
can
reach
contact.
out to me if they wish. I give sessions on tapping and I help you identify what the negative emotion is. And that's the hardest thing because a lot of people can't always put a label on what they're feeling. So I help
Yes.
them discover what that emotion could be as we move into then the technique for releasing this behavioral pattern so that you can connect with that rawness and who you are. There are books available. You can go online, of course. It's helpful to have someone actually in person with you, working with you, so you can identify the right
Yes.
pattern that's a priority for you right now, that's standing in your way,
Yes.
and creating a block for you. And it's called energy psychology. I mean, it's something that's been around for quite a while. They're still
Yeah.
figuring out how it actually works, but it works. And I use it a lot with veterans like the Navy SEALs, for example,
Yeah.
help with PTSD, post-traumatic stress. It's
Yeah.
very profound. So that, again, circling back to the rawness, that's, one of the things that can get in the way is those behavioral patterns, like you said, and what you've been taught and over the years are standing in your way of connecting with who you really are, owning your weaknesses and strengths,
Yeah.
and being okay with being in your raw. So it,
I agree with you.
mm, mm. It's you know, I think from what I've seen, women can be afraid of being in their raw because they're worried they're going to make mistakes
Hmm.
or be judged or called out on who they are. But eventually, no matter how you try and pull away from that deep connection to your rawness, it will always find you. And as you saw, when you got into your 50s and these other people I've seen get into their 60s, that's when it can show up if you've been pushing it down.
Yeah.
And it will show up like a volcano going off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that was for me too. It came strong, like right at the end of
Yeah.
my 40s, going into my early 50s, I was like, I just, my husband was like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, You know, I'm not that 20-year-old you met many years ago. I said, I met my husband in English class in college. I'm not that little girl anymore, I'm a grown woman who knows who she is now, And I'm sure he was happy that I was happy with myself, but I don't think he was happy with the change. I think he liked that sweet little girl that was like, "What can I do for you, honey? Oh, honey, why are you mad at me?" It was like, "You're mad at me?" Whatever.
And that's just that confidence that oozes out of you as you get older because we've been so suppressed and
Yes.
grew. And I do believe that the younger generations now aren't that way
Yeah.
so much. I see my niece, she's 21. She really knows what she wants and doesn't put up with anything,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
it's not in alignment with who she is. And she makes it known. And sometimes my mouth just hits the floor when I hear her talking. I'm like, you go, girl. Because we're so not used to it because of our grooming, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I love that, and we do all change. I mean, it's amazing how relationships even last as long as they do because
Yeah.
men and women are changing, and as we get older, and the fact we stick together is quite incredible.
Yeah.
So all kudos to you both that you're still together. That's incredible.
Yeah, I'll be honest, life when you're married to someone, you have to make changes. Like they say how our personalities change every 7 years,
Yeah,
well, you have to keep working on your relationship. There were moments where I was like, you know what? Oh, and just it's like, maybe I'll go buy a little house in Florida and I'll see you on the weekends, when you're finished with work and you're not so stressed out, and it's like you have to work on it. Relationships are just like when you're dating. You have to just constantly work on it, but in a different way, And anyone like on Facebook who tries to make themselves have the perfect marriage, it's like, you know what? You stop listening to these people on social media because life is not a bowl of cherries. Everything that turns out well takes lots of work, whether it's relationships, friendships, work, success in what you do. It
yeah,
all takes work. It takes compromise. It takes
I
communication.
agree.
It takes change. And you have to be in the raw. You have to be your true self because if you're not your true self, then how are the people around you going to know who you are and know how to treat you, respect you, and behave the right way so you could be happy, you could grow, and they can appreciate you for you.
Exactly, well said. And I feel with all of this, and as you've just clearly said, it's being authentic to yourself. Because if you're not authentic yourself, you really are lying to everyone around you.
Yeah,
You're hiding yourself behind this mask. You're doing everyone the disservice of really not knowing who you are. And
yeah,
when that mask does fall off, everyone is surprised because we haven't shown our authentic selves. We haven't really been truthful because we were too scared, whatever the reason.
yes,
Um, but the circle doesn't know us. So there's a surprise. And then sometimes there's upset and
yeah,
hurt and disappointment because there has been that hiding that's been taking place. So expressing yourself, reducing those inhibitions, showing up messy, accepting yourself, honoring yourself, being authentic and transparent really just helps you connect with that rawness and putting to one side what everyone else has told you and how everyone else expects you to be.
hmm
That's not you. That's not you. That's their imprint that you've taken on.
hmm
Where are you in this? And this is the work that I do with women. I help them to find that and connect with that rawness and purpose and help them see the bigger picture, join the dots together and how they express themselves.
hmm
Um, and so they can improve relationships and work and carve out something really worthwhile for themselves.
Yes, I agree, 100%. From today's conversation, you've covered so many great things about living in the raw. So
Mhm.
if you had to wrap that up, how would you like to emphasize, like maybe some important factors that you'd like to pull out from this conversation that you would like to really emphasize to the listeners today?
I would invite you to dare to be in your vulnerability, dare to be in it. And I think that's a good word, daring.
Hmm.
Um, Realize that you are your weaknesses as well as your strengths, and that's okay.
Hmm.
You know, when we make mistakes, we grow.
Yes.
Um, and to stop being the doormat if you feel that you're putting others first all the time.
Right.
And ultimately, to really know when you're hurting, really tap into that when you're hurting
Yeah.
and you can no longer put up with circumstances that don't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
That's when connecting with your rawness and being honest with yourself and authentic and transparent really counts. You know, you need to be honest with yourself.
Yes. I agree. Ah, very well said. Very well said. Now, if you had to take today and you had to look at all, you wanted to explain to everybody about your services, tell everybody about all the different types of services because you have a lot to offer. And I want people to understand all the different things that you do and how you could help others.
Well, I have women's empowerment groups that I run monthly, you can sign up for. And I also do programs for women to help them redefine themselves.
Hmm.
So that means if you're stuck in a career decision or you're thinking about you'd like to set up your own business and you want to become an entrepreneur, there's many more thousands of female entrepreneurs now than there've ever been before.
Yes.
Or you're in a corporation, you're a CEO and you're in leadership and you want to improve your mindset and there's difficulties with certain things of delivering information and how you want to strategize. I can help you with that.
Hmm.
Um, there's also working one-on-one to help break negative patterns, help you identify why you're stuck,
Hmm.
pushing through on that, and also helping you discover your purpose. So there's a few things there. Ultimately, it's about helping you feel more empowered in your life.
I love it. I love it. Now, where can people contact you if they want to contact you?
So you can reach me at my website, nicolasalter.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. You can also find me on Instagram under Nicola Salter Empowers. So you can reach out to me there. And also, you can set up a discovery call with me if you want. We can discuss where you're at, where you feel stuck, and I'll help you understand what actions you could take and steps you could take to move forward.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been amazing, Nicola. I love having you on the show.
Yeah.
Today's discussion was just outstanding. I think this is something that people really need to hear, being in your raw, being your true self, the importance of it and how to do it. This was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. You're phenomenal. And
Uh,
thank you for having me on board. Thank you.
you're very welcome. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.
You too.